You think you're in control of your pleasures. But what if I told you that your need for instant gratification is actually a form of slavery that's destroying your potential as a man? Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who predicted the crisis of modern masculinity over 150 years ago, understood something about pleasure addiction that most men today refuse to face. While you're scrolling, binging, and chasing the next dopamine hit, you're not just wasting time, you're actively participating in your own psychological castration. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the hidden truth about why pleasure addiction is the enemy of everything you actually want in life, and how understanding Nietzsche's radical ideas about self-overcoming can free you from patterns that keep you weak, unfulfilled, and far from the man you know you could become. Most men today live what Nietzsche would call a slave existence without even realizing it. You scroll endlessly through social media. You binge-watch series until 3 a.m. You chase the next dopamine hit from porn or video games or whatever quick fix makes you feel good for 5 minutes. This isn't freedom. This is the opposite of freedom. You've become a slave to your impulses, a prisoner of your own desperate need for immediate pleasure. Nietzsche understood that there are two types of morality in this world: slave morality and master morality. Slave morality is reactive, it's weak, it seeks comfort and avoids pain at all costs. When you choose the easy pleasure over the difficult growth. When you pick instant gratification over long-term fulfillment, you're living like a slave. You're not creating your own path. You're simply reacting to whatever stimulus promises the quickest escape from discomfort or boredom. The brutal truth is that modern society has designed the perfect slave system for men. Every app, every platform, every form of entertainment is engineered to keep you in this reactive state. You think you're choosing pleasure, but pleasure is choosing you. You think you're free because you can access anything you want instantly, but you're actually trapped in patterns that make you weaker, more dependent, and further away from becoming the man you could be. This is the hidden slavery of our time. Nietzsche's most powerful concept is the will to power, the fundamental drive to grow, to overcome, to become more than you currently are. But most men have replaced this with what we could call the will to comfort, the pathetic desire to avoid all struggle and seek the path of least resistance. Every time you choose the couch over the gym, every time you pick easy entertainment over challenging yourself, you're betraying your deepest nature as a man. The will to power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. It's the drive to push through discomfort, to face your fears, to build something meaningful even when it's difficult. When you're addicted to pleasure, you've essentially castrated your will to power. You've traded your potential for temporary relief. You've chosen to be comfortable instead of choosing to be powerful. Think about it this way. Every great man in history had to overcome pleasure addiction in some form. They had to say no to immediate gratification, to say yes to their greater vision. Your ancestors fought wars, built civilizations, created art that lasted centuries, not because it felt good in the moment, but because they understood that real power comes from self-discipline. When you choose comfort over growth, you're not just wasting time. You're actively weakening the very force that could transform your life. Nietzsche warned us about the coming of the last man, the final stage of human decline, where men seek nothing but comfort and pleasure. The last man blinks, shrugs, and says, why bother with anything difficult? He has his little pleasures, his safe routines, his predictable entertainments. He asks for nothing more than to be left alone with his distractions. Sound familiar? Because you're looking at an entire generation of last men right now. The last man doesn't want to create, to struggle, to become something greater. He just wants his daily dose of dopamine from whatever screen is nearest. He measures his day by how entertained he was, not by what he accomplished or who he became. Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago, this reduction of human potential to mere pleasure-seeking. The last man thinks he's discovered happiness, but he's actually discovered the end of human greatness. What makes this truly dangerous is that the last man is satisfied. With his smallness, he doesn't feel the tension that drives growth, the dissatisfaction that sparks creation. He's content to consume instead of create, to be entertained instead of being engaging. This is why pleasure addiction is so insidious. It doesn't just waste your time, it kills your ambition. It makes you comfortable with mediocrity, When you're constantly seeking the next hit of pleasure, you stop seeking the next version of yourself. Most men are trapped in a cycle of moral judgment about their desires that keeps them weak and confused. You feel guilty about wanting pleasure. Then you indulge anyway. Then you feel shame. Then you promise to be better. Then you repeat the whole cycle. Nietzsche would say, you're still thinking like a child, dividing the world into simple categories of good and evil, instead of understanding the complexity of human nature and desire. The problem isn't that you have desires. The problem is how you relate to them. When you judge your impulses as evil, you give them power over you. When you try to be perfectly good, you set yourself up for failure and shame. Nietzsche taught us to move beyond these simplistic moral categories. Your relationship with pleasure isn't about being good or bad. It's about being conscious and intentional. It's about understanding what serves your growth and what diminishes it. This applies directly to how you handle relationships with women. If you're constantly oscillating between putting women on pedestals and then resenting them, you're stuck in the same good-evil thinking. Real masculine strength comes from accepting your desires without being enslaved by them, from engaging with attraction and sexuality from a place of self-awareness rather than compulsion. When you stop judging yourself, you start choosing yourself. When you move beyond moral categories, you start making decisions based on who you want to become. The Bermensch isn't some superhuman fantasy. It's Nietzsche's vision of what you could become when you stop accepting the values that society has programmed into you. Most men live their entire lives following scripts written by other people, chasing pleasures that advertisements tell them to want, seeking validation from systems that don't care about their actual fulfillment. The Bermensch creates his own values, decides for himself what constitutes a meaningful life. Self-overcoming means recognizing that you are not fixed. You are not your current habits. You are not your past failures with pleasure and discipline. Every moment is an opportunity to become something more than what you were the moment before. When you're addicted to instant gratification, you're essentially saying that your current self is all you'll ever be. Self-overcoming requires you to envision a future version of yourself that has mastered these impulses and then work backward to become that person. This isn't about perfection. It's about direction. The Bermensch doesn't avoid all pleasure. He chooses his pleasures consciously based on his own created values rather than reacting to whatever stimuli cross his path. He understands that true freedom isn't the ability to do whatever you want in the moment. It's the power to align your actions with your deeper vision of who you're becoming. When you start creating your own relationship with pleasure instead of inheriting one from culture, you begin the process of self-overcoming. Nietzsche proposed a thought experiment that will destroy your comfortable relationship with mindless pleasure. Imagine that you had to live your exact life over and over again. Every choice, every moment. Every hour you spent scrolling, every time you chose the easy path over the meaningful one, would you be able to say yes to that life? Or would the thought of repeating your current patterns forever fill you with horror? This is the test of eternal recurrence, and it reveals the truth about how you're actually living. If the idea of reliving your relationship with pleasure addiction makes you uncomfortable, that discomfort is pointing toward something important. It's showing you that deep down, you know you're wasting your potential. You know that the man who spends 3 hours a day on entertainment and instant gratification isn't the man you respect or want to be. The power of this concept is that it makes every choice sacred. When you realize that how you spend today might be how you spend every day for eternity, suddenly that decision between discipline and indulgence carries real weight. Your daily relationship with pleasure isn't just affecting your mood or productivity. It's defining the entire trajectory of your existence. The question becomes, if you had to live today exactly as it is forever, would you choose differently right now? This is how you begin to live with the intensity and intentionality that creates real transformation. Nietzsche wrote that when you stare into the abyss stares back into you. For modern men, that abyss is the endless void of entertainment, pornography, social media, and instant gratification that promises everything and delivers nothing. You think you're filling your time with pleasure, but you're actually creating an emptiness that grows larger the more you try to fill it. This is the existential crisis hiding behind every addiction to easy dopamine. The abyss reveals itself. In those moments, when you finally stop consuming and sit with yourself, suddenly you feel the weight of wasted time, the absence of meaningful relationships, the gap between who you are and who you wanted to become. Most men immediately reach for another distraction rather than face this uncomfortable truth. But Nietzsche would say this discomfort is sacred. It's your authentic self trying to break through the layers of numbing behaviors. What makes this particularly dangerous for men is that society tells you this emptiness is normal, that endless consumption is just modern life. But your ancestors didn't live this way. They built, they created, they faced real challenges that demanded growth. The abyss of modern masculinity isn't just personal, it's cultural. Recognizing that you're staring into this void is the first step toward climbing out of it. The discomfort you feel when you're not distracted isn't a problem to solve. It's information about what your life is actually lacking. Society has taught you that pleasure is good and pain is bad, that comfort is success and struggle is failure. But Nietzsche understood that these aren't universal truths. The revolutionary idea is that you can create your own relationship with pleasure, discipline, and what constitutes a meaningful life. You don't have to accept the default programming that keeps most men trapped in cycles of instant gratification. Creating your own values means asking deeper questions about what you actually want from life. Maybe the culture says success is having enough money to buy whatever pleasure you desire, but what if you decide that success is the ability to delay gratification in service of something greater? Maybe society says a real man takes whatever he wants, but what if you decide that real strength is choosing what serves your growth over what serves your impulses? This isn't about becoming a monk or rejecting all pleasure. It's about becoming conscious of why you make the choices you make. When you create your own values around discipline and indulgence, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the author of your experience. You stop asking whether something feels good and start asking whether it moves you toward the man you want to become. This shift from inherited values to created values is what separates boys from men, followers from leaders, slaves from masters of their own destiny. Amor fati means love your fate. Embrace everything that happens to you, including your struggles with temptation and your failures with discipline. Most men hate themselves for being weak. They fight against their impulses. They see their addiction to pleasure as something shameful that needs to be hidden or eliminated. But Nietzsche would say this self-hatred is just another form of weakness, another way of avoiding the real work of transformation. What if instead of hating your struggle with instant gratification, you learn to love it as the exact challenge you need to become stronger? Your battle with pleasure addiction isn't a bug in your system, it's a feature. It's the resistance training that builds your willpower, the friction that creates the heat necessary for change. Every time you feel tempted and choose differently, you're literally rewiring your brain and strengthening your character. The paradox of amor fati is that when you stop fighting against your circumstances and start working with them, you actually gain more power to change them. When you love the fact that you struggle with discipline, you stop wasting energy on self-criticism and start using that energy for actual growth. Your addiction to pleasure becomes the raw material. For building authentic strength, this doesn't mean accepting mediocrity. It means accepting the process of becoming excellent. When you embrace your fate, including your weaknesses, who makes life happen? Nietzsche's most famous command was become who you are. But this isn't about discovering some predetermined destiny. It's about taking responsibility for creating yourself instead of letting circumstances, culture, and impulses create you. Most men never become who they are because they never take conscious control of the process. They let their relationship with pleasure be shaped by whatever feels good in the moment, rather than by who they want to become in the future. Becoming who you are requires art. You have to look at your patterns with pleasure, your habits of avoidance, your tendency to choose comfort over growth, and see them clearly without judgment or excuse. This isn't about shame, it's about accuracy. You can't navigate toward a destination if you don't know where you're starting from. Your current relationship with instant gratification is data, not a verdict on your worth as a man. The process of becoming who you are is ongoing. It never ends. Every choice between discipline and indulgence is an opportunity to sculpt yourself, to move closer to the man you respect, to align your actions with your deepest values rather than your surface impulses. This is the ultimate freedom that Nietzsche offered. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to become whoever you choose to be. When you understand that you are both the sculptor and the sculpture, everything changes. Your life becomes a work of art instead of a series of reactions. The hidden truth about men addicted to pleasure is that they've traded their power to create themselves for the temporary relief of not having to face who they really are. Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago. He predicted a world where men would choose comfort over greatness, distraction over self-creation, and immediate gratification over the slow burn of becoming something magnificent. The question that should haunt you after everything we've discussed is this: are you going to spend the rest of your life as a consumer of experiences designed by other people? Or are you going to become the author of your own transformation? If this video stirred something in you, if you felt that uncomfortable recognition of wasted potential, then subscribe to this channel, because we're just getting started on the journey from slave to master, from consumer to creator, from boy to man.